What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. This is Hawk Talk on Melrose. Thank you for tuning in. I am Collin, joined as always with Tyler. Before we get into what we're talking about today, which I'm super excited about, we're going to get into Iowa's football schedule. We do want to say thank you for supporting this podcast. Once again, you can reach us on many different platforms such as Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Castbox, you name it, we're on it. You can also follow us on YouTube at Hawk Talk on Melrose. You can see our faces on there. We do a video of each and every episode. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to us on that platform. We just asked for two things. We asked you leave a review, good or bad, on any platform that you're listening to, and then also make sure you let other people know about us. Family, friends, coworkers, especially people that like Iowa football and are into podcasts. Word of mouth is the easiest and cheapest way. So thank you for that. All right, let's get into it. That's enough for the housekeeping items. Let's talk some Hawkeye football. Tyler, you ready to dive deep into the schedule?
Let's get her going. I'm ready.
All right,
Good to be back. Yeah, for sure. I'm
after
pumped for this
four.
episode. We
What were
did
you gonna
this
say?
episode last year. I was just gonna say we did this segment last year, and it went over really well, I thought, and it was kind of fun to go back and forth and see kind of how we stacked up against each other in terms of our rankings. So I'm excited to do it again.
Yeah, it was definitely one of my favorite episodes last year. So I know I wanted to do it last week, but then we did the Big Ten. You're like, yeah, let's just wait till another week. I'm like, I don't want to wait another week, but here we are. We're here to do it, and I'm excited. So
Right.
before we get into that, though, the schedule difficulty 12-1, which we will do here in about 10 minutes or maybe even less. Let's talk a little bit about the schedule. What are your general thoughts of this year's schedule? Because I know a lot of people are kind of making fun of us for an easier one, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
I think overall, it's still going to be one of the easier schedules that you're going to see out there, in terms of just because of who we don't play in the Big Ten. Obviously, we don't get Ohio State, we don't get Michigan, we do get
Yep.
Penn State, which is on the road. Obviously, going to be a huge game. And the one thing that I will say about our schedule, while I do think it's one of the easier ones across multiple sites and things like that, you're going to see Iowa is probably going to have one of the easier schedules, not only in the Big Ten but in the country. Thing I say is, I think the West is a lot better than people give it credit for. I think teams such as like Illinois, for example, who last year were a formidable team, I think are going to only get better and be more competitive, along with
Yeah.
the Minnesotas, the Wisconsins of the world, and things like that. So I think it's a little misleading, when you might just from the naked eye, you might just look at our schedule and be like, a joke. But I do think there'll be teams on there that are going to be that'll be a lot tougher than maybe years past.
You're 100% correct there. I think it is harder than it looks. Now, I do not think it's a very hard schedule. I'm not trying to say that, but it's harder than it looks just because of the away games and how big of some of those games are. And it seems like they're all on the road. You have Iowa State, you
Yeah.
have Penn State, you got Wisconsin, you got Nebraska. Really, the only true like rivalry game slash trophy game is Minnesota at home. Illinois at home. That's going to be another tough game that we at least get at home. But just talking like really tough games, they're all on the road. And so
Yeah.
I think that just makes it on paper a lot harder than maybe what people are trying to say it isn't. So,
Yeah.
but don't get me wrong. I still think it's very manageable. It's easier than most years. I mean, hell, we're avoiding Michigan and Ohio State. That's always a win when you get avoid not one, but both. So, yeah.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you.
Um, and another thing with like this year too is this is every other year. It seems like it kind of goes this way, but we get 5 home Big Ten games, and essentially, if you want to count the neutral site game, I guess that's an away game. I don't really count that as an away game just because I do think there will be more Iowa fans there than Northwestern fans. So if that's the case, we really only have 3 true away games in the Big Ten, and then 1 neutral site game, and then 5 home Big Ten games, which I think is always big when you have more Big Ten games at home than on the road. And then another thing I always look at too is what teams do we face this year that have bye weeks before we play them? And this year we only have one team, and that's Minnesota. While we get to go play Wisconsin on the road, they get a bye week, which I think that's an advantage for them at least. But the way I look at it is I'm just glad that game is at home. Opponent record in 2022, and I think this is why when you look at all these sites and they have Iowa, top 10 and strength schedule for the easiest, is they take into account the opponent record for last year, which in my opinion doesn't really mean a lot. Last year, 72-79, which is not good. That's a losing record overall. But I do think, and you mentioned it with like the Big Ten West being better, I agree with that because I do think Nebraska will have a better record. I think Wisconsin will have a better record. So I don't really think you can take that into account, but I see why they do and why they, to build these strength of schedules. Right. That's what they take into account. I mean, what else are you supposed to do at that point? So I totally get that. In terms of non-conference, we won't really touch on Iowa State just because we've already talked about them at some in previous episodes and people know about Iowa State, but the other two games that we play, Utah State, they are predicted to finish 8 out of 12 in the Mountain West. And Western Michigan is picked to finish last in their division this year and 10th overall in the MAC. So the cupcake teams this year are definitely going to be cupcake teams, and we should have no business taking care of both of those games, or teams, I should say.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We were kind of talking a little bit about kind of our non-conference games to start the year, and it's not exactly like most years. Like last year we had South Dakota State, who granted is an FCS team, ended up being the best FCS team out there. They were the one-loss team, only loss coming to Iowa in a very close loss.
Probably should have lost that game.
Like if we're being honest, we had probably no business winning that game. And so they, and they've got D1 talent. So it's not like it was just your average run-of-the-mill FCS squad that we were facing, or even back a couple of years ago, Kent State, who was a really formidable team in the MAC, and wasn't just going to be that 40-3 victory, which we knew wasn't going to happen. So, but this year, like I said, like you were just mentioning, Western Michigan, Utah State, we'll dive into it a little bit here when we kind of rank it, but like you said, there shouldn't. If there's any sort of issues early on with those two teams, then man,
got some problems.
that's not great. We're not looking hot again. So
for sure. I think we should have no business on the Iowa State game. That's going to be a little bit tougher just because that game's on the road. And I think I said it last year and I looked like a fool. I thought Iowa State was going to be better last year and they went 4-8. So who knows what they'll be this year, but I just think like Campbell, I mean, they went out, they got new coaching staff, new strength coordinator. They got a new offensive coordinator, new offensive line coach. Like they really went out this offseason. I think Campbell knows that like, it's like kind of like do or die. It's not like Campbell's on the hot seat, but I think he knows that like, okay, 2021, we were supposed to be a lot better because we brought everyone back with Purdy and we didn't have that good of a year. And then last year we went 4-8. Like if we have another like 4-8 season or close to that, like, my seat's going to get a little bit warmer. I think Campbell is not, but like, I'm just thinking kind of what he's probably thinking, like we need to get this thing turned around and get back on track a little bit. So I do think Iowa State and another thing too, is like, you have all these outlets that are putting Iowa State towards the bottom and they're like win totals, like 5.5. I don't know. I just think they're gonna be better than what people think this year. That's just my opinion, but maybe not.
Yeah. I mean,
and we'll get into that when we talk about the schedule difficulty. But
obviously, like you said, I mean, there's a little expectation there to kind of because they were on that kind of upward trajectory with Campbell. And last year they fell very short of what they, I think anticipated. And I'm, obviously we know Iowa State fans there, they want to see, just like Iowa, they want to see some results. Maybe not. I'm not saying that they're expected to go out and win the Big 12, but they, like you said, they were going to try to for sure get more than 5.5 or 5 or 6 wins. So I think they'll be better than what you give them credit for. They'll play with a chip on their shoulder. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll talk more about them when we get to that. I'm anxious to see where you put them at in the schedule difficulty. One last thing before we get into that, though, is I do want to say this year I love so far the times and the stations that we are on in some of these games. We obviously don't know all of them, like Michigan State, Northwestern, Rutgers, Illinois. Those games are going to be to be determined. But the other games, besides the first game, which is an 11 a.m. game, which I absolutely hate for the first game, I'm loving some of these times. Penn State night game on CBS. We get three straight NBC games: Purdue, Wisconsin, Minnesota. CBS to end the year at Nebraska. Like, you can't get much better than that. Iowa State 2:30 on Fox. It's pretty awesome. And if you just wipe away that first game and what the time is at, because I wish that game was later on the day, I would be like so far an A+ for these times.
Yeah, not to revisit the last podcast episode or take a shot at the Pac-12, but man, does it feel good to be in the Big Ten right now with the amount of exposure and just great, yeah, like you said, time slots that we'll be playing at and playing on. So yeah, 100%. That's gonna be awesome this year.
And I'm hoping that Purdue game stays at 6:30 a night game, because I want at least one night game. I think every year
too.
we deserve more. I think we deserve more than one night game. It seems like it's like, can there ever be a year where we get like two, like three? Like, it seems like if we do get one, it's only one, and that's if we get a night game. So there's a chance
that
game.
Last year's night game was
rain.
Horrible.
Yeah, that game sucked. I mean, didn't get done till like 2:00 in the morning. That was the strangest game I've ever like witnessed.
Yep.
Like, the fact that we went to the game, we left after like the first or second rain delay, and we got home back to Carroll, which was a 3-hour drive. We got home before they started up again. Like,
I am glad I had a wedding that weekend. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, that game was horrible.
If there was a game to miss, it was that one.
And like, that was like right after, like, okay, we barely beat South Dakota State, and then we lose to Iowa State. So like, it's like everybody's just down to the dumps about this
morale
team.
Is
and then that happens, and it's like, wow. But
God, what else could go wrong? Right.
Yep, exactly. No, you look at this, Western Michigan's at 2:30 this year. It's like, why can't that game be the 11 a.m. game, and then the first game be a 2:30 game? But you know, there's always something to complain about. And so I'm going to complain about that.
The better tailgate, we'll just have to get there earlier. I don't know. Maybe have to get there at like 4 a.m. and start real early.
I mean, I would love to do that. I just don't think we can do that. I think there's like
I agree.
But that would be awesome, though. I'm sure we'll get there pretty freaking early, though. Earlier than what we usually do for 11 a.m. game. Like an 11 a.m. game later on the year, we might not get there as early, right? But that first game, I think we'll probably get there pretty damn early, like earlier than what is normal. Yeah. We'll just have to get up really early that day, which kind of sucks, but whatever. It is what it is. All right, let's get into the schedule difficulty. Once again, what it is we rank 1 through 12, and we'll start at 12. 12 being the easiest game on the schedule, what we think, and 1 being the hardest. Now, obviously, it's kind of hard because some of these games, some of these teams are pretty close, but it's just fun to kind of look at and kind of see. And I actually went back and looked at last year's results, and we were pretty dang close in terms of just like what we kind of thought going into the year, like teams that were going to be pretty good, teams that weren't going to be pretty good, and like the away games, home games, like we were pretty dang close at kind of what we put on paper. Now, we do not know each other's results, so this is what's going to make it fun. I think last year we did going into it, so it wasn't as fun for us. So we don't know each other's, which is awesome. So it's going to be all just like, here it is. So we'll start at number 12. Tyler, you can go first, and then I will go.
All right. At number 12, being the easiest game that I have, Iowa, facing this year, is going to be Western Michigan. I think they're going to be a very bad football team overall. And, obviously, this might be the best that Western Michigan looks all year, because they've got all this offseason to prepare for Iowa. But I don't think it'd be a very good football team. They were 5-7 last year, and they have actually a tough schedule. I was kind of looking at their schedule to start the year. They got 3 non-conference games of Syracuse, Iowa, and Mississippi State.
Oh, dang.
I think their non-conference is pretty dang tough.
Time out before, because I didn't actually look at their schedule. So who do they start the year off? Or do they play?
I didn't have it.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have it in order. I didn't have it in order, but that's just the kind of the research I was doing. It was just showing their non-conference schedule. So I don't know if that's the exact order or not. You might have to fact check me on
Yeah,
that,
I'm gonna
but
look that up right now.
I'll keep talking here. So they were a bad football team last year. And to make matters worse, they lost key pieces on offense in the transfer portal. Their starting running back and receiver, the running back Sean Tyler and the receivers Corey Crooms, they both left for Minnesota. So for the Gophers' sake, that's great. Western Michigan's sake, that is not good news. Combined with the fact that they're apparently undecided at quarterback at the moment, I don't think their offense is going to be very good at all. Iowa should have no trouble with this team. There's not much more to say.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
So they actually are looking right now. So they start off the year against a team I've never heard of, St. Francis University. So they should be 1-0.
St. Francis University. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like a basketball school. I didn't even know that, so I've never even heard that team. So they should start 1-0. And then they play Syracuse at Syracuse, of course. And then they play Iowa. Mm-hmm. And then they don't actually play Mississippi State until October 7th. So a little bit later in the year, but they should be like 1-1 going into Iowa, I would think. I mean, if they're 0-2, then wow, that team is going to be absolutely horrible. But okay, so for me, actually, we're already off to a different start. For me, I actually have Utah State, and really the reason why, and I'll just say a little bit about Utah State. I'm sure Utah State for you is number 11, but going into last year, they were 6-7. They actually did finish the year off not bad. They finished 5-1 to close out the year, and they made it to the bowl game. They lost to Memphis. They are losing a lot of guys on offense. Their quarterback is back, but their starting wide receiver from last year, that was one of their really good all Mountain West Conference wide receiver, is gone. Their running back is gone, who is their leading rusher, had over 1,000 yards. Both of those guys are gone. And then defensively, although should be improved, their defense allowed over 400 yards per game, and they didn't really add anything. So, yes, they were younger last year, so some of these guys are back. They should be better, but how much better can you get at that point? But the reason why I have this at number 12, and I'll explain why I have Western Michigan one spot ahead, because I do think Western Michigan's actually a easier opponent. And I do think with Utah State, they get all fall camp to prepare for us, but I have them at number 12 for a reason that I will let you know here at number 11. Tyler, what are you at number 11? Probably Utah State. I'm guessing.
I've got Purdue at.
Holy shit! Okay, I was like, holy fuck.
I was joking. Yes, I've got Utah State. It's a lot of the same sentiments you just said. I mean, they should be on paper, I guess, a little bit better than last year, but they're not a good football team. And I don't see one off season, 1 year making a difference with some of the guys that they lost. And just, I don't, like you said, defensively, they're going to be kind of in shambles. I think they're not a very good team. They give up a lot of yards, which bodes well for Iowa. You would think. I guess my point with these two teams is it's like, man, for an offense in Iowa that really needs that to build that confidence early in the season, there's no other better probably two opponents to play and to kind of jumpstart that than these two. So a lot of the same things you were saying with Utah State, I got them at 11.
Okay, so for me at number 11 is Western Michigan. The only reason, once again, I do think Utah State's a better team than Western Michigan, but I don't like where this game is at. In the middle, it's like a sandwich game after an Iowa State game, which, especially if we beat Iowa State, we're going to be coming off, and hopefully we do, we'd be coming off like an emotional win. And then the week after Western Michigan is a huge game on CBS, night game, Penn State. So are the players going to be ready for this game? Are they going to be prepared for this game? Or are they going to be looking ahead or coming off such a high off of Iowa State, hopefully, if we beat Iowa State? So just, once again, I think we're going to take care of business no matter what, because this team is horrible. But I'm just saying, it might be a little bit tougher of a game just because of that reason compared to that first game, because it's the first game of the season. You're amped up, you're pumped.
Right.
Versus Western Michigan, you might not be as prepared for that game. It's a 2:30 game. It could be just that sleepy afternoon game. I remember 2 years ago against Colorado State. I remember that game was a 2:30 game, and we struggled big time, even though Colorado State sucked that year. So
Yeah.
that's the only reason why I'm putting them at number 11.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Obviously, it's not so much about like Western Michigan. You're saying it's more about who we're playing and maybe looking down the road to.
Yep. And that's what,
after.
yep. And with this, when we do this, I mean, for me, like, yeah, obviously I look at the teams and what their makeup is, but I really do look at other things as well to kind of get
Other
this.
factors.
Yep, exactly. All right. Number 10 for you.
Number 10, I have Northwestern. There's not a ton to say here. I just think Northwestern's a bad football team. They've been bad for the last couple of years, and in my opinion, they got worse. Obviously, losing your head coach.
Yeah.
Kind of really the heartbeat of that team. Really, I mean, I think was a hell of a coach, and to lose Pat Fitzgerald and just sort of the distraction that caused, and the other distractions that are going on with other sports in that program. I really don't see there being any reason Iowa not winning this game. Like you said, I know it's a away game, but it's in Wrigley Field. You made the point that there might be more Iowa fans there, which
I think there will be.
Which I think that there could be as well. Me and you were talking. We were like, we'd love to go to that game, but tickets are kind of expensive.
They're like, last I looked, they were like over $300.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
So it is crazy. So, but yeah, they were. I don't see this being an overly tough game. I think it's going to be an easy game. I've got them the third easiest. I think it's, and you could make an argument that maybe they're a worse football team than Utah State or Western Michigan, but it's obviously a Big Ten opponent. So I got them slotted here.
Yeah, I actually have them at number 10 as well. And a couple of weeks ago when I did just like a mock of this, like not serious 12 through 1, I had them lower because that's when Pat Fitzgerald was still around. And under Pat Fitzgerald, he's always had a knack of beating Iowa, it seemed like. Yeah. So I always had this game more up, and I did. And then the minute he got fired, I put him at number 10. So number 9. Yeah, there's really not much more to say about them. I don't think they're going to be very good. I would think 2 to 3 wins max this year for them. If they get more, okay. I was wrong, but I just don't see it. So number 9 for you.
Number 9, I have Rutgers. I put them at number 9. We got them at home this year. Not a horrible team. I think Greg Schiano's a hell of a coach. I kind of said that on this podcast before. I mean, for him to be Rutgers head coach is pretty good for Rutgers. They have a good defense, which I think, might bode well for them. I don't know about their offense. Their offense, I think they don't have a very good QB. He struggled a lot last year. Is he gonna be better? I don't know. And they don't have a ton of talent on the offensive side of the ball. Combined with the fact that, I mean, I think you actually you sent me over some notes to start the season, and I totally forgot you had it as they lost their punter, who was actually really good for them.
Yes.
Yeah, he's like one of the better punters in the country. And special teams, is a part of the game that sometimes maybe fans, I know Iowa fans don't forget, because we pride ourselves on special teams, and punting is winning, right? But that's a huge part of the game, and I think will be, greatly affected for them. So I've got them here at number 9.
Yeah, I have them at number 9 as well. I like where this game is at. It's, in the month of November, where, I think at that point in the season, we will hopefully be competing to go to Indy, and obviously you got to take care of business against Rutgers. And I think in the month of November, Rutgers, I think this year will be decent on defense. I think they're going to be really poor on offense. And when you get in November, a little bit colder, I just don't see how this team scores against us, against our defense. And you go back to last year when we played at Rutgers, and I went to that game kind of nervous a little bit, just because it seems like we never really play there, kind of unfamiliar territory. And I just remember their offense could not do anything against our defense. It was every single.
Cooper DeJean had a pick 6.
Yep. And I just
I
don't
do remember
see
that.
that being improved, especially in Kinnick this year. So
Yeah.
I'm going with number 9, Rutgers. Number 8.
Number 8, I've got Purdue. This game in recent memory has always given us trouble, except for
Yep.
last year. Obviously, we kind of finally broke through the curse of Purdue. It seemed like where we play Purdue and we look like absolute shit and they torch us.
Yeah.
Um, so last year actually was a good sign. I have them here. I do think obviously they lost their head coach who went to Louisville. I'm forgetting his name off the
Jeff
top of my
Brom.
head. Jeff
Brom.
Brom.
Jeff Brom.
Yep. And which I do think is a big deal. I think he was a hell of a coach for Purdue.
Yeah.
Um, but I still see their offense being pretty damn good. They got a transfer from Texas, Hudson Card, who I think is a pretty good, solid quarterback. And it seems like they always have good quarterback play. So I think he'll be able to kind of steady that offense. Running back should be good. But I have them here at 8 because I do see this being a very winnable game. And obviously, like I said, last year, with our shitty offense, we actually kind of did good against Purdue offensively, at least for a half. I do remember that. So I've got him here at 8.
Yeah. The one thing about that game for me is like the week after is a huge game at Wisconsin. So that's kind of like where that game's kind of going to be a little bit tricky. But we finally have a little bit of a disagreement. I know we had one at 12 and 11, but we have one here. I actually have Michigan State here at number 8. Mel Tucker at Big Ten Media Day said this was his most athletic team, or he said something along those lines. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's more just coach speak. Now, I do think Michigan State won't be bad. I just think like, man, like when you lose your quarterback in the transfer portal after the spring and then you lose your starting receiver, like that would be like literally like Cade and let's just say Nico, like both like, hey, we're going to leave. Like what? Like that's just so crazy to me. And like,
Yeah.
how do you like be good after that? Like when your starting quarterback just leaves all of a sudden and your starting receiver who was really good leaves. So this is another classic game where it's just like they're gonna come into Kinnick and it's like how are they gonna score? Especially with a new quarterback in Kinnick. This will be coming off probably a loss against Penn State the week before, but just because we lose to Penn State doesn't mean the season's over with. So we're gonna get back on track that week, get back to business, and I have them at number 8. Number
Real
7,
quick.
or
Well,
yeah,
and real quick, I was just going to say too, I know we talked about this when we were doing kind of our schedule, like our win-loss totals. Um, Purdue has a really hard schedule.
they
And
do.
how does that affect them when we play them at that point in the season? That's kind of another factor I was thinking as well, because they're going to go through a gauntlet this year.
Yeah.
And
Actually, while you're saying that, I pulled it up. Purdue before
yeah.
they play us. Yeah, I mean they have to play at Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Wisconsin, Illinois. So yeah, you're talking, and
Yeah,
then the week after that's Ohio State. So
how beat up are they going to be? How, what is their record going to be going into that game versus Iowa? I think that all plays a factor, and obviously you never know. But I know Michigan or Purdue's win total is not very high this year.
speaking of schedule too, Michigan State, new quarterback at Iowa is they're going to be their first away game of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. I'm
Wow.
looking at it
I
right
didn't
now,
either.
which I think is huge. They have
Yeah.
4 home games start the year, and then it's like newsflash, we have to go on the road now and play at Kinnick, which that game is not. It's to be determined what time that will be at, but that could, I mean, maybe be a night game. I mean, hopefully, if
Yeah.
not a 2:30 game. So, yeah, I guess I didn't even think about that until you kind of brought up the schedules. So,
Yep.
where are we at now?
7.
Number 7. Yep, number
Yeah.
7.
Number 7, I do have Michigan State here.
Okay.
I guess for me, it's more just it's maybe what Michigan State represents and who they were and who they, maybe more so in the past is what I'm kind of fearing a little bit more compared
Yeah.
to like what
Then
you were mentioning but so it's a crossover matchup that, it's Michigan State, they're going to be formidable. They're going to be, well coached under Mel Tucker. But you made a great point. I mean, obviously they lose their QB and top receiver. I mean, that's a huge detriment to that
Yeah.
offense. And like you said, with Iowa's defense this year not getting any worse, like, I mean, man, that's going to be tough for them to score. But Michigan State will have a tough defense, I think. They've got some key pieces that I think will be decent on their defense. But yeah, I've got them here at 7.
So then, yeah, pretty much it's a flip flop. I have 7 Purdue, and you kind of laid it out. I think that new head coach, but I do like the pieces that they have. I do like their quarterback Hudson Card that you mentioned. So it'll be a tough game. I'm glad Jeff Brom is gone. He was just something about a headache for us, and we just
Yeah.
couldn't quite figure him out, even though we finally did last year. But he's gone now. But they do have a coach that was defensive coordinator last year on a team that we only scored 6 points on, Illinois. And even though our offense was bad, but and he said something at Big Ten Media Days about how he knew what was coming, which we can maybe talk about that on a different episode when we're talking about the offense. But so I do like their coach. I think he's going to be decent for them, and I like their quarterback, so I'm putting them at number 7. Number 6.
Number 6, I do have the Iowa State Cyclones.
Okay.
I don't think Iowa State, we talked about it. I don't think they're expected to be very good, especially in the Big 12. They're not picked to finish anywhere near the top. But I do think with this being in Ames, hostile environment, I mean, we say it all the time when we play in Ames, that
Yep.
crowd is no short of electric there. Obviously, they're going to do everything in their power to try to help that team. I don't think they're going to be, a great team, but you never know. Obviously, it's came out now that Hunter Deckers is suspended due to the gambling situation, which definitely hurts them. But they'll obviously have some talent at the quarterback position still, whoever that ends up being. I hate this game. It's a lose-lose situation, in my opinion, really this year, because I think we are expected to beat them. But it's a rivalry game. It's a tough game.
Yeah.
It always seems like it's tough. And we always talk about it, but it's like, man, I just want to get this game done and over with. So yeah, I've got them at 6 because it's a rivalry game, and it's always tough to play in Ames.
Yeah.
I definitely think that.
You always feel a lot better after you get done with that game, especially when you win. It makes you just feel so much better about things versus like last year.
It doesn't affect us in the Big Ten, but it's just it's for bragging rights. It's for all the extra BS that comes along with rivalries. So
yeah, exactly. Number 6 for me, I have Minnesota. They're going to be good this year. I think. I mean, under PJ Fleck, they're always going to be pretty good. I think PJ Fleck's a good coach. I know he gets a lot of people don't like him, and I don't really like his antics, but I do think at the end of the day, he is a good coach. But he has yet to beat Kirk, and I just don't see that happening this year in Iowa City in Kinnick, I should say. And so I'm going to go with them at number 6, just because I have some other games ahead of them, or teams, I should say, that especially some teams on the road, I got to have them ahead of them. So that's why I'm having them at number 6, even though I do think that this game is still going to be hard. It's going to be tricky. It's a rivalry game. It's a trophy game. They have not beat us since 2014. You know that this game is circled for them, but I'm putting them at number 6. Number 5.
Number 5, I have the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Games in Lincoln to end the year.
Yep.
Going to be tough, especially after last year. I think Nebraska has that sense of, all right, we kind of got over that hump. We beat them.
Yep. We finally did it.
We got one. We feel like we're back to being competitive and back to beating the Hawkeyes. So I think it's going to be a tough game. Is this a game like last year that could decide some things? It very well could. Bigger like Big Ten championship aspirations for the Hawks. I mean, I don't know. It very well could. It could come down to a game like this. So I think that plays into my ranking here. I think they have a better head coach in Matt Rule, who obviously recruits well and could be a lot more disciplined under him compared to Mr. Scott Frost, who I thought was actually an advantage for Iowa at
Yeah,
one
no
point
kidding.
because it seemed like they were just so undisciplined with him. And so it's like, dang it. They might actually be better under Matt Rule. So offense, I think, is going to still be very good. It always seems like Nebraska's offense is good. You made up a good point though in one of our other episodes with their quarterback situation right now, and Jeff Sims being a former quarterback at Georgia Tech. It's like, is he really better than Casey Thompson?
Yeah.
I thought Casey Thompson was a hell of a quarterback, and I don't exactly know what that situation was about, but or if they just went in a different direction, maybe you could touch on that. But go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say with Jeff Sims, the one thing that you will get though is you will get the dual threat. I don't think Casey
Yeah,
Thompson, but altogether though, yeah, I don't think Casey was that bad of quarterback, especially
no,
given the all the drama that was happening last year with Scott
right,
Frost and everything. Like, I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. So I just think their offense will still be very good, and they'll be able to move the ball down the field and put up points. But yep, I've got them here at 5.
Yeah, I have them at number 5 as well. I do think I wish we were playing them earlier in the season because I do think as like the year goes on under Matt Rule,
Yeah,
like first year, like they're gonna figure some things out, and by
yeah,
the end of the year, like they should be a lot better than they were the
good point.
first 3 or 4 weeks. So that's the only thing. And we with Matt Rule, like you know what you're gonna get from him because you've seen the results and you saw what he did at Temple. He turned that program around. You saw what he did at Baylor. And Baylor was probably in a way worse shape than Nebraska was because Baylor had all those like allegations with Art
Yeah,
Briles, I think his name was. So, and he turned that ship around. Now, and in the NFL, he kind of stunk it up, but I think the NFL is just a different beast. And you see guys like Nick Saban, you see guys that are just college coaches. They just aren't meant for the NFL. And in the NFL, you need to have a good quarterback, else you're not going to do
yeah,
good. And like
correct.
Carolina did not have a good quarterback, so
Yep.
I don't even like take that into consideration when I look at like Matt Rule's
No.
like record and performance. So you know what he's kind of done at the collegiate level. And so I fully expect him to be able to do it at Nebraska. And so far, like everything he's said and talked about, now it's all coach speak, but it just sounds like he's going to turn
He's
this thing
saying the
around.
right things.
Yeah.
You just get that sense of like maturity
Yep.
with that team now compared to under Scott. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
And
agree
I
with that.
and I think the trenches are going to be they're going to be better in the trenches both offensively and defensively at the line of scrimmage, which was something that they were just not good at, and that's the reason why they've been where they have been the last couple of years. So I do think that that game's going to be pretty tough, especially towards the end of the year. Number 4.
Number 4, I've got Minnesota,
Okay.
and a big reason for this is the fact that you mentioned they haven't beaten us under the PJ Fleck era, and
Yeah.
it's like at some point you would feel like the numbers would say Minnesota would get us. Now it's been what 7, 8 years. I have no idea. Whatever it is, I think it's 7 or something like that. You almost get that feeling. It's like it has to happen, right? And you hope it doesn't. And we've done well so far, but that's what scares me the most. I feel like it's a rivalry game, obviously. Like you said, Minnesota's going to have this game circled because they want this one just so bad. I can tell. Them and their fans don't like their fans, but they're going to have this game circled, like you mentioned. They have a deep wide receiver core, maybe the one of the best, in the Big Ten, and a quarterback that I believe is a pretty dang good quarterback that can both run and throw.
Yep.
And which they haven't really had as a at the starting level. I know they had like that. They had like a quarterback package where they bring in like a running QB, but to have him full time, I think it's Kaliak Manis or something like that is how you pronounce it. I think he's a pretty dang good quarterback and could elevate their offense. So yeah, I've got him here at 4.
So number 4 for me is actually Iowa State. I have them a little bit higher just because of the fact that it's on the road, and it's going to be tough whenever it's always going to be tough regardless if it's home or away, but especially on the road.
Yeah.
You mentioned with Minnesota and when are they going to finally beat us? And with Iowa State, they finally did it. So hopefully we got that out of the way and we can get back on the winning side of things in that series. Last year was just such a brutal game. We had no business losing that game, number 1, but just both teams just looked and played like shit. Like that was just such a horrible game. Even an Iowa State fan, like watching that game, yes, you win, that's awesome, but you have to admit, like that game was just a horrible game. So hopefully
Yeah.
this year, regardless of who wins, hopefully it is Iowa. Hopefully it's just a better game where it's actually enjoyable to watch. But with Iowa State, you mentioned about Hunter Deckers, and yeah, he's not going to play that game. He's probably never going to play in
Yeah.
the at the I don't know
Is
what's
he
going to
still on
happen
the
there.
team? I
I
have no
don't know.
idea.
I don't think so, but he might be. So you got now who's going to be their quarterback, and I think it's going to be Rocco Becht. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Or it might be that true freshman JJ Cole, but I think it's going to be Rocco. And so with that being said, though, I think Rocco won't be bad for them, but
No experience though.
he had no experience, and he's going to be going up against a Phil Parker led defense week 2. So like, yeah, he's going to have that first game to, I guess, get some reps in and get prepared for. But I just think it's going to be tough for him. That his first legit game is a huge game against Iowa. But not only that, but you're going to be going up against a really good defense. And as long as we're healthy going to that game, like I just don't know how he's going to fare in that game. But I still think,
Right.
regardless, though, it's going to be tough. And it's going to be tough for us because Iowa State's defense is always seems like they're always good against us.
Yeah.
And so if Iowa's offense is similar to last year, or even if they're slightly better, it's still going to be tough for us to score. So it's going to be a close game, I think. So I have them at number 4. Number
And
3.
real quick,
Or,
like for
yeah,
no, now this is not a shot at Iowa State, but they also have a tough game week 1.
they do.
I'm a former Northern Iowa Panther myself, and no, they're actually going to not be a horrible team, I don't think, this year, and so they've got a little bit of a tough stretch, kind of like what it reminds me similarly of us last year. How do we had to start against South Dakota State, and they get UNI, and then it followed up by Iowa, so they got a
Yeah.
little tough stretch there themselves.
Yep. I mean, yeah, they might. I mean, they could
I don't
easily
know.
start 0-1. I mean, they could.
Yeah, yeah.
If they look,
They've
if
had trouble with UNI in the past. Like
yeah,
that's not me just making stuff up. Like there is like it always seems like they kind of overlook them.
yeah. If they look pretty dang good that week 1 game, like let's say they go out and like they
Yeah,
dominate, then like I will be a little
I'm
nervous
gonna.
because it's like okay,
Yep.
because this UNI team is not going to be that bad, and usually UNI plays them pretty tough. So like if Iowa State goes out there and just kicks ass, then I might be like, oh boy, maybe Iowa State
Right.
will be pretty good this year, or, decent or
Yeah.
whatever. So, number 3.
This was kind of tough, but I do have Illinois at number 3, being that it is a home game for the Iowa
Yeah.
Hawkeyes. If this game was on the road, I might have had this game a tick higher. But we get them at home. This is a really good football team. There's no other way to slice it. I think we kind of talked about it a little bit. A lot of the Big Ten analysts have picked, or a couple of them have at least picked the Illinois Fighting Illini to represent the West in the Big Ten championship. So they've got high
Yep.
expectations, not just for themselves, but from other analysts. And I do believe they've got a pretty dang good QB, transfer from Ole Miss, Luke Altmaier, who obviously hasn't had a ton of experience, but I think could kind of provide some stability at the quarterback position for them, and kind of elevate that position prior to years past. And they finished second in the West last year. I think they'll still be really, really good this year. Defense is still going to be very strong, especially up front, and up on that front 7. I think you kind of mentioned it. It's like they lost some secondary players, but I just think under Brett Bielema, they're just going to be that hard-nosed, tough football team. Reminds you a lot of Iowa, really, when it
Yeah.
comes down to it. And yeah, Brett Bielema is a hell of a coach, and it seems like they're only going to get better under him. So I've got this game as the third hardest game.
Yeah, I have them at number 3 as well. Going back to Nebraska, I mean, where this game is played at too, towards the end of the year, might be a little bit tougher than normal because you have a quarterback that doesn't have much reps as a starting quarterback. I know he was at Ole Miss, but he didn't play really at all at Ole Miss. But by the 11th game, you're going to have a lot of games under your belt by then. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. And who knows, at that point, Illinois, they might also be competing for, a spot to go to Indy. So that game is, I think, a lot bigger than what maybe it looks like now. And that game could certainly whoever wins that game could certainly maybe make the argument might be going to Indy. So that's going to be a huge game in Kinnick. I don't think people realize how big of a game that is. I think everyone just still kind of just thinks Illinois is Illinois, and it's like,
The old
no,
Illinois. It's
yeah,
not.
no. Brett Bielema, he's a good coach. You saw what he did at Wisconsin, and he has this team on the uptick. And you mentioned their defense is good. Their defensive line is really good. And you talk like Iowa's defensive line, Illinois is right up there. They might even be better than Iowa, the defensive line position. So tough team. It's going to be tough. I have them at number 3. And then number 2, which I'm sure I probably know.
It is those Badgers,
Yep.
Wisconsin Badgers here at number 2. Games in Madison. You don't have to tell any Iowa fan how hard that'll be. Obviously, it's
Yeah.
going to be crazy atmosphere. I truly believe this game could decide who goes to the Big Ten championship. You make an excellent point, though. Illinois, that also could be a huge factor.
Yep.
But I right now, kind of preseason, I think it's probably between Wisconsin or Iowa, and this game is no shortage of, and very important, obviously. So I think the winner of this game has a huge advantage in the standings. And like I said, could decide it. Obviously they've got a new head coach, Luke Fickell, who I think is a proven winner. I think he's a hell of a coach. Brought
Yep.
the Cincinnati Bearcats to a playoff, which is kind of crazy to think about, but he did that. And he comes into Wisconsin along with some other coaches. And, obviously they're running kind of a new air raid type system, which, who knows how that's going to go, especially year one. But I just think they have too much talent. Obviously I think their transfer quarterback who is kind of born in that air raid system should fit their system really well. They obviously have really good running backs. And I don't know. I just think it's going to be a game. If we do win, we'll be down to the wire. And I just think it's going to be really tough. I really do.
Yeah, it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be, regardless of whoever
If
wins.
we
I don't
win,
think.
I don't see us just dominating. I don't.
Yeah. I do think this is the most fascinating game on the schedule. Obviously, that's Penn State because it's going to be a night game on CBS and it's at Penn State Whiteout. That's going to be the most fascinating. But in terms of the biggest game, it is 100% this game at Wisconsin.
Might be the most important game.
It is. It's the most important game. It's the biggest game of the year. It's bigger than the Penn State game because I do truly think that the Penn State game, if we lose, it's not a big deal. Because at the end of the day, you just got to beat the Big Ten West teams, number one. Yeah. And then the crossovers, you want to go at least like 2-1. Now, if you went 3-0, that's awesome, but that's more times than not going to happen. But if you can at least go 2-1, can you go 2-1? And this year you get Rutgers and Michigan State at home. So you should go 2-1.
You have a good chance. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you look at last year, we went 1-2 and we still almost made it to Indies. So but going 2-1 is big time. So you lose that game. Yeah. You start 0-1 in the Big Ten, whatever. But if you just take care of business against your West Division teams, and then you take care of business against the other two crossovers, you're fine. So this game is the biggest game of the schedule because if you can beat Wisconsin, you get the head-to-head. So if Wisconsin does, only lose one game, well, if we beat them, then that means that we at least have one game ahead of them because of, the head-to-head. So It's a huge game. And I think if you lose it, you still have a shot to go in Indy. And it's not like it's like, okay, the season's over with. And I just think it's a lot more difficult, especially if Wisconsin's beating the games that they should win. And you look at their schedule and on paper, I'm seeing a lot of wins.
Pretty easy schedule.
Yeah.
And I think what you're hinting at is it's almost like, and I don't know this to be a fact, but you just almost have that feeling. You're looking at it preseason wise. If we lose that game, it's almost like we don't control our destiny anymore.
Yeah.
I feel that way. I really do, because I think Wisconsin's going to rack up the wins just based off of who they play as well. Not necessarily because they're the best team in the Big Ten West. That could be Iowa, that could be Illinois, but their schedule bodes well too for them.
I think, let's just say hypothetically, we do win that game, which would be awesome. Let's say we do. And, you look at Wisconsin's schedule. I mean, they're going to lose another one. I mean, Ohio State. So that'd be 2. So that at that point, Iowa could afford to lose two other
Correct.
games, whether that's Penn State and Illinois or Penn State and Nebraska. Like you can afford to lose two games and be
Correct.
fine. So that's why that game is so big. Now, if you lose that game, then you have to hope that, because if you lose that game, you're also going to lose Penn State. Like, let's be honest. I mean, I'm not giving Iowa a very good shot of winning that game. So that's already two losses. So at that point, you would have to hope Wisconsin loses three Big Ten games. Three. I don't know.
Tough.
Given that
Yeah.
schedule, I don't know if that's
Yeah.
going to happen.
That's
So that game
right.
is huge. And yeah, I have them at number 2 as well. They are going to be tough under Luke Fickell. I think when you look at Wisconsin, Nebraska, like which coach is going to be better in the long run, I don't know. But I think in the short run, I think just given Wisconsin's talent and really you're taking over a program that still is pretty stable compared to like maybe Nebraska. So I just think that they're going to be
Right.
better off this first year than Nebraska is. And yeah, it's gonna be really, really tough. The one thing I will say though is maybe now it will start boding well for Iowa, just because Wisconsin these last how many years they were a very dominant physical team. They were a lot like what we wanted to be. So maybe now that they're kind of going away from that, they're more air raid. They're going to be, maybe that's a good thing for Iowa. Maybe we can actually take advantage of being
Right.
very dominant, very physical. So I don't know. I mean, you can look at it at a couple different ways. At the same time,
Yeah.
you could say, what they're doing is the future, is what you need to do in college football, and they're going to be light years ahead of it. I don't know. You can make the argument both ways,
Yeah.
but
It almost seems like in years past they did a lot of the same things that we did, just better. And so
yeah,
maybe now that it's
exactly.
different, maybe we're able to sort of match up better with that. Yeah, you make a good point there.
Yep.
What game is that on the schedule again?
That's like
Do you
the
top of your head?
the third, like the 6th or 7th game of the year.
Yeah.
It's
Okay. Kind of in the middle.
October like 14th, I believe.
Okay.
Yep.
So I was just going to say, obviously, a game like that later on in the season might bode well more for Wisconsin, just to kind of, at that point under that new regime and new system
Yeah.
could be at what they think they should be towards the end of the season. So if you get them a little bit earlier, like you said, maybe middle of the season, it's not as bad. I don't know. Just I guess the
Yeah,
point.
and we should go into that year in that game. We should only have like one loss, and that's the Penn State game. So
Yeah.
that's just going to be a big time game, and at that point, Wisconsin probably will be maybe one loss, if not undefeated. So the game is huge, and as of right now, it's at 2:30 on NBC. So just a big time game. Now, the most fascinating game, like I said before, is what our number one hardest game is, and that is Penn State on the road, night out or whiteout night game. It's just going to be tough. It's just going to be a tough freaking game.
Yeah. And I think I have them going 11-1 in my preseason schedule. So
Yeah.
they're going to be a hell of a team. And I think if there's a year that they're going to actually maybe knock off an Ohio State or Michigan, it's this year. That's how
Yep.
good I think this team could be. Because I do believe their quarterback, Drew Aller, who in limited time looked the part, looked like a 5-star QB that he is. And I think he's going to finally take that next step and kind of do some big things for them.
Yep.
One of the best running back duos in the Big Ten, if not the country, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen. Defense is going to be physical, going to be tough. They've got studs kind of at every level, it seems like. And then I looked this up. They're actually tied with Iowa for the most returning starters in the Big Ten with 16.
Dang.
So they've got a lot of experience coming back, 8 on
Yeah.
offense, 8 on defense. And I think, obviously that's added with some of the new pieces that I think are going to elevate their team. Yeah, this is going to be tough. And like you said, just the atmosphere, where it's played at, what time. I don't give Iowa a real shot, to be honest with you, but hell, you never know. If this game was in Kinnick, like it was a few years ago, it's like, hell, you never know. But
Yeah.
where it's played at with the type of talent that they've got and the expectations that I think they are going to put on themselves this season, it's going to be the hardest game of the year.
I do think the one positive, I guess, or maybe two positives. The first positive is that they have to go on the road the week before and play Illinois, which I think will be a tough game for them. Hell, could be a loss for them. Like I think people might maybe overlooking that game, but that game, third week of the year, first true road game for Drew Aller, their quarterback. Like I could see Illinois possibly upsetting them. Now I'm not saying it's going to happen, but
Yeah.
could. So you got that, and then meanwhile we play Western Michigan, a little bit tougher of a game, or easier of a game. So I think that, and then let's just do what we did more than a decade ago when they had their whiteout back in 2009 and Adrian Claiborne block a punt, and we win that game. No, for me, yeah, it's like a 5%, 10% chance, because you never want to say it's 100% chance they're going to win. I mean, you want to give you want to give yourselves a little bit of a shot, but the chances are very unlikely. For me, I just hope it's a close game. It's a national televised game. I just hope we don't go in and completely make fool of ourselves. I hope we go out and we stay competitive and it's a close game. And because at the end of the day, once again, you lose that game, it means absolutely nothing. So if you go in there and you keep it close, but you lose, yeah, it kind of stings, but you're at least like, well, hey, we're fine. Like we'll get back on track next week. We get Michigan State and Purdue at home. We'll get things figured out. We still have a couple more weeks until we play Wisconsin. Plus, also, if we look decent against Penn State, I'm feeling a lot more confident about the Wisconsin game, because if we can play up to Penn State's level and keep it close, then we can do the same thing at Wisconsin. So that game's going to be a huge test for us, and yeah, really looking forward to it. But yeah, that should do it.
Well, I was to say, and another positive. I mean, listen. Defense and special teams is always going to travel well, right?
Yep,
so
exactly.
You give yourself at least that going into the game. And if the offense is randomly clicking and say Penn State's defense is, for some reason struggling a bit, you never know. So
yeah,
like you said, if it's a back and forth game and we're competitive going into that fourth quarter, that's really like a good measuring stick, I think, for, like you said, maybe even down the road against the Wisconsin team or something like that. So yeah, I just think you always give yourself a chance with Iowa's defense and special teams.
Yep. Yeah. If the final score is like we lose by like 3 or 4 touchdowns, then like, yeah, I'm not feeling pretty good, because it's like, wow.
I know, but it's almost like, well, would you rather lose by a lot or, you lose in heartbreak fashion? But you never want to lose in heartbreak fashion, but there's obviously way more positives out of that.
Yep, exactly. Especially when you're talking like a game like that on the road, night game, whiteout, things like that. So, and I think honestly, another thing too is, and once again, hopefully we beat Iowa State, but I think maybe playing on the road will give us a little bit of a preparedness for that game, because Iowa State, that's going to be a tough environment as well. Loud, fans on top of you, screaming at you. So, that game, I think will get us a little bit prepared for what's to come 2 weeks later. So maybe it's not a bad thing that we're playing at Iowa State this year. Although I always like when that game's in Kinnick, because but it also at the same time though, we've had a lot of luck at Jack Trice Stadium. It seems like it's been, these last couple times we played there, we have walked out with a dub. So hopefully that is the case this year. So, man, we went a lot longer than I originally thought. But I knew something like this. So it's always fun to do. And it sometimes you get kind of off track on things. So I guess we'll end it there. We're almost closing in on an hour already. Now this weekend we got, media days on Friday, which is always fun to kind of listen to and hear about, because there's always things that, have kind of came out. It's been a week and a half since they have, it's been a week, but by then it'll be a week and a half since they started camp. And then Saturday is Kids Day, which is the one and only time fans can go in and watch them practice. And what I like about that day is there's a lot of storylines. There's a lot of the beat writers have stuff about, they're tweeting as, the day goes on, but then they also compile and make articles at the end. They have videos. And so I'm really anxious to kind of see like, what things look like, how things look, specific players.
Remember how last year's Kids, wasn't like there were some people being kind of questioning the offense, right? And that was kind of an early, wasn't it a little bit? I swear
you might be right.
Something about Petrus was missing throws, or I don't know, something. I swear there was something.
You honestly I would have to go back.
They were on to something early on there.
Yeah, so. I mean, definitely, like, you can't take anything away from one practice, but you can definitely take away some things though. And like, if some things look kind of bad, you're like, well, we're still 3 weeks out from the start of the year, but but you want to at least see some things, some improvements, things like that. So plus
Right.
it's also a good thing that another thing I like about it is you can, at that time, like if anyone's hurt,
Sure.
or, because if guys are sitting out, then
Yeah.
okay, that guy's hurt, versus if they're
Right.
out there. Because right now
Right.
we really don't know. I mean, when you have these close practices, you have no idea
Yeah.
if someone's gotten hurt or whatever. So
Yep.
I'm really looking forward to Saturday. I'll be on my phone a lot throughout the day, scrolling on Twitter and updating Twitter, or I should say
For
X
sure.
now, and
Yeah.
following along there. I know last year I did actually I got instant reaction to the Kids Day, which actually generated it's one of like the better in terms of people listening to it. So maybe if I'm up to it, I would do that. I would do that again. But if not, we'll recap it all next Wednesday when we record our next podcast. So that will do it for this episode. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Thanks, Tyler. Have a good night. Have a good rest of
Yes, sir.
your week. It is Wednesday, so we only have 2 more days until the weekend. So look at that. All right, man. Well, have a good one. Thank you guys all for listening. Go
Yeah.
Hawks.